Greetings and salutations. It is El Jefe of Final Expense, David Duford of davidduford.com, where I coach, mentor, and recruit new and experienced agents to become top producers. And today you're joining me on a very important video that describes the 7 secrets about selling Final Expense they don't want you to know. Now, obviously, you're thinking, Dave, why are you using clickbait to get me to watch something? Is this actually legit? Am I going to learn something that I don't know? Well, if you're experienced in this business, you might know some of this stuff, but this video is really meant for you brand new agents that know nothing. And my job is to educate you so that you know exactly what you're getting into if you decide going into Final Expense is for you, and then also to decide if the organization you're a part of, that maybe you're a newer agent a part of, is actually the right choice for you. So these 7 deadly secrets you need to know because it could affect the long term of your business. And what I'm going to do is provide you context to each of these 7 deadly secrets and then try to provide some stories or some examples so you can better understand and illuminate how this works. Straighten my glasses here. Whoop. There we go. So number 1, the truth about Final Expense is that many organizations are oriented towards a multi-level marketing fashion. So what does this mean? It means if you can fog this mirror or have a pulse, you're hired. Now, the problem with that is that the orientation around that is built upon recruiting as opposed to be built upon production. The best agencies that bring on new agents to Final Expense, whether they have experience or not in another sector or even in sales, are the ones that focus on training, that focus on skill development, that focus on coaching to help you become better at what you do, rather than focusing on just the recruiting aspect where even before you're licensed or even appointed to carriers, you're being told to recruit anybody you've ever walked across the street from. I think that's a little silly and a bit premature. Not that I'm against recruiting. It's what I do now at this point in my career. But I think you need to have your bearing straight and make sure that you focus on becoming a top producer first and foremost before you start recruiting and getting into that. So the implications of this are that you need to be careful when you're looking for a Final Expense organization to work with that focuses on nothing but recruiting and doesn't focus on training. And you'll be able to easily tell that by just paying attention to what they focus on in the initial meetings, what they discuss. If their discussion is, okay, here's how you can learn this craft of salesmanship and marketing program to make a good income, that's great. If you hear a lot of talk about this is how you can create a downline and here's how you can find friends and family to work for you, if you hear more of that, run. Because the truth is you need skill to pay the bills in this business. And you don't have skills by recruiting in most cases. You need skills for selling. Point number 2 is there's actually more options than you think there are. So what I mean by this is that in this business, there's really 2 different routes you can go down when it comes to selling or representing insurance companies. You can join an agency that's what we call captive or a broker. The difference is simply captive agencies, generally speaking, not always, represent one company. There's some benefits to that. It simplifies the learning process for sure. Whereas the brokers represent multiple companies. Now, when you're selling Final Expense, here's the deal. There's not one company, even the ones that are my favorites, that by themselves are always, no matter what, the best choice for the client. So if you walk in the home with one particular product, in the vast majority of cases, I would say probably 50% or more, you're underserving your clientele relative to what they could get with another product. The implications of this are twofold. Number 1, it's likely, first of all, ethically, you're going to have a problem with that if you have any sort of basis in thinking you should do the right thing for your client. If you are joining an agency that forces you to sell one product alone, you're not doing the best by your client. In fact, there may be occasions where you wrote a policy that wasn't fully comprehensive in coverage, and what if the client dies within that period of time? We call that a 2-year waiting period product, when they could have possibly gotten something that would have been first day full coverage. How would you feel if that was your mother that you wrote that policy on? Wouldn't you want your mom, I hope you love your mom, to get the best plan that's available to her that would have fully covered her and pay the death claim? in the full coverage amount. The second thing, the second implication, is that if you walk around with selling just one policy, the likelihood is very high that all you need is some dude like me or one of my agents or the thousands of agents across the country that are brokers to come behind you and try to replace you. Now, you may have been told or you may be trained that replacements are bad, that they're unethical, but it doesn't matter. They're legal. That's what matters, no matter what your opinion on it is. And you will be attempted to be replaced if you write an inferior policy. You can bank on it. It's not business. It's not personal. It's business with your clients too, by the way, because they want the best job for them. So the implications directly are that you'll lose more business. You'll have more chargebacks. That money earned is going to have to be paid back. And now you're in the shackles of debt. And it becomes harder to leave these organizations to join others because then there's the problems of being reported a vector. That's a whole nother video. But at the end of the day, the best thing to do in the final expense business is have multiple options. If you have multiple options, you're going to have a better chance of surviving this business, writing better quality business, writing and keeping more of that business, and ultimately helping more people and making more money. Number 3 is vesting. What is vesting? Best way to describe vesting is who owns the business that you write. The best organizations, the brokers out there, own their business immediately from the first day. So that client you found that you got in front of is yours. So you can go back to that client, sell them more insurance at your discretion. The worst setups out there do not vest you 100% from the first day. So what happens is now you're in the standpoint of where if you leave in the first, and sometimes year, 2 years is the most common. I've seen organizations that go up to 10 years where you're not fully vested. And if you leave, you lose either a percentage of that business or in many cases, all of that renewal income that you haven't earned. This is one of the nastiest, dirtiest tricks that they don't want you to know because it's a big income source for these organizations. And the reason that pisses me off is that in the most likely scenario, you've paid for the leads out of pocket or you're responsible for paying for them. You sold the client. It's essentially yours. But a lot of you guys out there will sign these contracts without reviewing them first, and then you come back and now you're really screwed. So I say all this because if you haven't been there, I don't want you to obviously get into that. You want to ask about this stuff. Ask your upline if you're looking at joining an agency, am I vested? And make sure you ask if there's an agency contract that you can review that says that. And if they recoil at that, you got a scoundrel on your hand and you just need to find someone else to work with. Point number 4 is commission. I've been shocked at how many agents have never thought it was possible to get above 100% commission. Like how and why would an insurance company pay more than 100%, like 110%, 120%? Well, the reason they do that is because they're willing to pay more than what they earn in the premium in order to win the business over some other competitor. So they just take a loss on the commissions for that first year, but they make it up over time. They got, numbers guys and bean counters that think this stuff up, eggheads. So they've got it handled. You don't have to worry about that if you're paid more. But the point is, a lot of you who are looking at organizations that sound really good, they've got great people up there, beating their chest, telling you how great they are. Ask them what your commission is going to be. It should be for most agents, for most carriers, 100% and above if you're in an independent organization where you pay for your own leads. But many of you will be offered 50%, 60%. And guess what? You still have to pay full price for leads in many circumstances. Not always, but many. What's the problem there? Well, why are you giving up that much commission, 60% compared to 100% and more? What are you getting in exchange for that? And what you'll find 95% of the time, you're getting attaboys, pats on the back, things that make you feel good, but do they actually make a difference in what you sell? Do they actually make a difference in your bottom line to keep food on the table, to take care of your family, to earn money, to make savings? And I would argue for most people, no, it's not worth it. You're being played and you're being not fully shown the transparency. So always ask about commission. If it starts lower, ask what it takes to get higher. And unfortunately, many times what you'll find to get the higher commissions, you've got to recruit. Not that that's a bad thing, but many of you out there probably don't want to recruit. You don't want to get into the adult babysitting business, as I have heard it being described. And that's fine. You should be able to get high commissions as a highly productive personal producer. But many of these organizations won't. So ask how commissions work. Make sure you understand the details there. Number 5 here is training. Again, this kind of pairs with number 1, where the focus is on recruiting and not on training. Don't join organizations that don't train you. You should have fully comprehensive training where you have training online available. You've got at least weekly calls you can join, access to a mentor you can call or text, and the opportunity to do a ride-along. If you don't get any of that, beware. You're likely joining an organization that isn't working in your best interest. Number 6, leads. Very important discussion here to have about leads. The one thing I want you guys to be really clear on is that when you look at leads, the best option for leads are fresh and exclusive leads. Now, some organizations, most of them will do direct mail, which is good, but they're aged and they're worked already. So you may be seeing Mr. Mrs. Jones, who sent the card back 3 years ago, and they've already had 5 agents in, and you wonder why they're rude and throw you out of the house. Not that you can't sell them. It's just, hopefully you can see a little bit harder. Whereas the other alternative to that are leads who just sent the card back, who just expressed first-time interest, and you're the first agent in. Don't you think that would be a little bit simpler, perhaps even easier to sell than an aged lead? I certainly do. And that's why I only recruit agents to my organization who will buy fresh and exclusive leads, not aged leads. And we can do different types. Facebook leads and direct mail are the most popular. Sometimes you get agents doing telemarketed leads, but most of the time nowadays it's direct mail first and Facebook leads second. So if you're out there looking to join an organization, do make sure that you vet that point first. Make sure that your leads are fresh and exclusive and aren't old. And unfortunately, this is way more common than you think, that what's presented is fresh and exclusive, because that's the price you pay for a fresh and exclusive lead. You find out they've been worked to death already, and that ain't any good. And the final point here is the amount of actual freedom you get. So this is a point of contention for me personally. This may not apply to you, but it always has to me. I'm probably the worst employee ever created. I've always had a disposition towards entrepreneurship. And the whole reason I got into the insurance business was not to be micromanaged. It wasn't to show up for meetings every day. It wasn't to be reporting to somebody or being told what to do. The biggest reason I got into insurance sales, besides the opportunity to make good money, was the freedom that came from it. The freedom of getting into my car whenever I wanted, to go work wherever I want, to help people that need the help, and to do things according to the way I want to do. Truth is most agencies aren't going to get you appointed with that in mind. In fact, the vast majority have daily calls that you're required to be on. They have an office you have to report to. They have a boss you have to report your numbers to. What seems, or what originally is given to you as a business opportunity, quickly turns into another corporate scheme that you may or may not be inclined or happy to deal with. Now, truth be told, I'm kind of a weirdo when it comes to that stuff, so I may stand alone on this. There's a lot of people that need that, and that's good. And these organizations that I would hold suspect, they may be perfect for you, and that's cool. But for me personally, freedom is really an important aspect of this business. Again, with commitment and time and making sure you do the best you can and work hard, you will eventually do really well. And you want to retain the freedom that comes with the opportunity of selling insurance. You don't want to be in another employee type of organization where you have people to report to and there's tons of obligations. At least I never did. So consider the freedom aspect. And a lot of times the lack of freedom is associated with all of the other details that I mentioned earlier. So it kind of is hand in glove kind of thing. So if you're interested in selling final expense, of course, I'm going to plug my own deal. I think what I have to offer would be a great option for those who are generally independent but need training and help to get started, but appreciate all the positive aspects that I mentioned earlier and don't appreciate any of the negative ones, because that's how I set my agency up. I set it up predominantly for agents new to selling insurance, but I recruit agents who have experience selling final expense or not, that are young, that are old too, male, female, no matter where you come from, your background. If you're passionate about training and becoming the best you can be, I want to talk to you. Those are the agents like you that best fit my organization. Let me explain to you how that works. If you go to davidduford.com, click Join Dave's Agency, that will take you to a screen where you can learn more about all the different programs I offer as well as final expense. If you got questions, comments, please leave them below. I answer personally every single comment that comes in. As long as it's relevant, I'll be happy to answer it. Please subscribe and share this video with anybody who's interested in selling insurance. It'll be a useful resource for them. And I want to thank you so much for sticking with me through this 15 minutes or so. I do hope it gives you some illumination and understanding about the secrets of the final expense business and what the options are to overcome the worst of them. David Duford here, davidduford.com, logging out. Peace.